Y'all, this is something so profound and so simple and so transformative. I don't even know really where to begin. You may or may not have heard me talking about this modality and this attunement and this, the Remerging. You might have heard me talk about it before, basically. But this first came through on 1101 last fall, winter, right in the crux between Samhain and the new moon, the Scorpio new moon that was happening on 1101. And I was doing an energy healing session for a friend and colleague, a Reiki practitioner. And we were exchanging energy sessions. We were doing it in person. And during the session, I was given a symbol. And I conducted essentially an activation during this energy healing session. And I've given attunements before. I've done self-attunements. And I knew that when the symbol came through, I was receiving essentially an attunement to it in that moment in order to give an activation of it through the energy healing. And the symbol was just kind of burned into my brain, like in a way that if you know, you know? And it was a super powerful energy healing session. My friend was talking about it for months afterwards and is in the founder's Remerging attunements stage. And I'm trying to think how to talk about this without this being forever long, but it'll just be as long as it needs to be honest. Because I think it's worth bringing up that obviously, if you've been with me for a while, you already know. But the modality that I practice, energy weaving, the modality that came to me during a fuck it ritual back in 2020. I think around September, end of August, beginning of September, when I heard the word energy weaving drop into my head. And within a month or two, I basically went to an Akashic Records practitioner and had them. I basically went in there to ask about the energy weaving. And I was like, this term came through. I Googled it. I've looked it up. And like, nobody's talking about it. Or if they do, it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound like what I feel. And like what the energy behind it feels to me. Like it's not matching up. Like, and I think I had also started to like begin, I was still in the early stages of learning to channel and astral travel and, doing that kind of thing. And really, to be honest, a lot of me going to this practitioner was for validation. But I go into this session and I remember this practitioner being a little shook about the session. And there was another colleague who was mutual friends with both of us. And I hadn't gone to the mutual friend because I wanted to go to someone who was a little bit more impartial and neutral and didn't really know me type of thing. And I remember they ended up going to the mutual friend to like debrief about this session because it was so bizarre. And so we go into the session, and like I said, I think at this point, I had received energy work from other people maybe 3 times ever in my life at that point. all within that same year. And I hadn't received a whole lot of sessions, a few like, card readings and stuff. I had done card readings for myself for years, but I won't. This was all very new to me back then. And so I was very much in the eclectic pagan and like mental health space around that time still. And so I go to this Akashic Records practitioner that I trusted, and, I still trust their, reading and everything. And they go in there and they basically I don't find this out really until afterwards, but they basically got kicked out of the session. They got tranced out, essentially, to where they were unconscious for the entirety of the session and really had no memory of the vast majority of the experience. They remembered going through their protocols to access their own records, and then began accessing my records. And when they began accessing my records, one of my record keepers came through, and instead of them entering and engaging with my records and record keeper within my records, they never were allowed entry into my records. And instead, my record keeper came to them. This is a simplified kind of example of this, but I'm, for the sake of storytelling. And essentially, my record keeper, my main one at the time, came through, and Elysium Asar, they came through and were directly basically channeling and speaking to me during the session. And like I said, at this point, the actual practitioner is so tranced out, they're unconscious and not aware of anything that's happening right now. And so during this, I promise this was all tied into the Remerging. And so during this process, they sass me a little bit. You know how the records can be very, very neutral and matter of fact and stuff. They're just like, what it is. This is yours, all this sort of stuff. And like they're in this session. And I mean, at this point, like, my confidence levels were like abysmal, just non-existent, really. And I just was also very naive and very just uncertain and just didn't know what the fuck was going on. All very self-taught in a lot of ways. And so they kept they're like, you are the energy weaver. You are the energy weaver. You are the energy weaver. Like, what do you mean? Like, it's yours. It's you. This is yours. This is your modality. This is the modality of your soul lineage. It's like, you are the originator of this modality. You are called the energy weaver. You are known by the energy weaver. It was like it was a whole thing. It wasn't quite that repetitive and intense, but I'm also melding in what ended up being months and months afterwards of reiterations of this. You're getting all that crammed into a few moments. And during this process, they guide me through self-attuning to the energy weaving modality through a process. And when I say that, half of that process was them telling me, what to do it. And me just having to do it. And then them telling me it was correct and guiding me through the rest of it. And, that's the details of that are a sacred discussion that, you might one day hear later on down the road, should you be in deeper attunement levels. And so that began my journey of being trained in the energy weaving modality. And like I said, the first time I ever heard energy weaver was during a fuck it ritual, which we are currently at this time embarking on another one of. That was my first ever one. And so that sparked what would eventually me embarking on that fuck it ritual week as part of what led me to being here today. In the to a development of this modality and the framework and the systems and the embodiment practices and the soul mechanisms and all this kind of stuff, to a level and degree of practice and embodiment and experience that would be absolutely unfathomable to who I was prior to that first fuck it ritual. I didn't know that this Remerging discussion was going to be so heavy on the fuck it ritual energy, but it's all interwoven. Everything I do is interconnected and interwoven. And so energy weaving, the modality, is the modality that is wielded by architects, soul surgeons, the primordiality, grid weavers. There's modified versions of it that have been broken down over time. It is the original energy healing modality. If you get into very obscure technicalities that matter but don't matter. And so it's also my soul modality. It's part of what sparked the journey of me getting back to my soul origin and my connections back to the primordiality and a lot of my work with the architects and all that kind of stuff. It's what, I was trained in the primordial soul framework as a result of this. Me being attuned to this modality that essentially woke me up to the modality of my soul lineage, the modality that allowed me to wield the most pure, the most authentic, the most complex and expansive version of my source energy, the most potent, concentrated, and powerful version of my energy work. What sparked the webs and the threads for me to also unlock the framework and the perspective and the embodiment practice and the techniques and the X, Y's, and Z's to wield that modality. It all started with that moment. And throughout all that process over the years, I've done other attunements for other people. I've attuned a couple of people to like a very, very basic beginner level version of energy weaving in a lot of ways. I used to do exploratory attunement mentorship sessions, which was kind of like a practice run for what I'm doing now, which was when I was going through a client's soul records, and we would go through and explore different incarnations, and we would basically build a modality and awaken a modality of their unique expression through this process and awaken their unique gifts. And so I've unlocked some really cool abilities and memories and connections for people through that. And so I've been kind of training for this for years. Since this, I've received multiple energy weaving modality upgrades. I've done other types of attunements to other facets that complement it, like draconian energy wielding and a flower of life grid caretakership and all kinds of stuff. And so all of that got me to last year on 11/01 when I received the Remerging symbol. After years of kind of doing this training, teaching classes of adjacent topics and themes, learning the foundations of the primordial soul framework and soul mechanics, I was given the Remerging symbol to caretake, to bring down to the Earth Collective as a symbolic conduit to weave in this series of attunements that is essentially an energy weaving modality, attunement, and it can evolve into a more specific energy weaving modality like what I do. But it is the expanded and complexified essence of what happened for me back those years ago when I was attuned to, it wasn't just so much about me being attuned to the energy weaving modality specifically, but it was that I was attuned to the perfect modality, the perfect frequency, the perfect thread and interwoven web of energy that would allow me to unlock the modality that was most authentic, most vibrant, most potent, most fulfilling to my unique soul. The modality that nobody else can wield in the exact same way as I can. The modality that is inherently mine, and that by accepting and receiving the spark and the activation and the caretakership of that modality, it became a point of no return of unlocking all of these other facets of myself. And that's what the Remerging modality does. It will unlock a connection to yourself that will challenge and change and expand your perception of all potentiality. Whatever you think you know right now about the existence of reality, I don't care how advanced your practice is right now. I promise, working with this modality, even as an advanced energy weaving practitioner who had gone through extremely advanced training and remembrance initiations, when I received the Remerging attunements that I spent from 11/01 to Imbolc, to beginning of February, being initiated into myself, it changed, it gave me the activation of the macrocosmic embodiment term and the summation of how everything that I had been doing tied into that embodiment practice. It led to the rebrand of my business. It has led to a profoundly deepened state of authentic presence and capacity for complexity. It has changed so much about my life, and I was already essentially attuned to an advanced version of this modality and had been for years. So just kind of keep that in mind. And this isn't even the first invocation of it, but that's why I told you the story of when I was attuned to energy weaving, because it was my version of the founder's beginning attunements to the Remerging modality. And so this is a modality that is accessible and perfect to start with. If you're a beginner and don't know how to do energy healing work and have never done it before, and maybe you thought about doing Reiki or something like that, but it just didn't quite click and didn't quite fit and didn't just align, or maybe you did start receiving some of those attunements or things, but you felt like there was something more you were supposed to do, or maybe you're already a more advanced practitioner and you do energy work already, or you do different things. The Remerging modality is different because of the way that it is structured, and the macrocosmic capacity of it is unlike anything. And I know that's I just hope that the enthusiasm and the energy and the vibrancy behind this is reaching you, because it is such by nature an intangible thing, but it is so profound and so impactful. And the cohesion, remerging, healing, and activation gives you a taste of a more of a remerging activation, a more temporary, healing quality versus receiving it as an attunement, if you kind of are curious. But I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I thought I was going to start doing the attunements a few months ago, but now is the time. We needed the soul body activations that were happening over the last few months. Those needed to happen first, which I can understand now. And I can understand why I had to kind of pre-attune myself and pre-integrate and pre-process my connection to the Remerging attunement and the Remerging modality. My colleague and friend who has experienced the Remerging modality activation and has kind of had an initial attunement stage. They are also studying to be a Reiki master. And so we've compared notes about between Reiki and the Remerging modality, and also my energy weaving work as well. And they're like, absolutely, and like 100%, they're like, there is an energetic like Reiki. They're like, I can't go back now after experiencing the Remerging energy and my energy weaving. They're like, Reiki now, every time that I specifically tap into Reiki, they're like, it's so clearly an earth-based source energy. And they're like, I never really would have thought of it as a very universal source energy prior. I never would have considered this. But they were like, after receiving the Remerging and the energy weaving, but especially the Remerging activation that they had, they were like, it's beyond. And it taps you into something that is way beyond earth source energy and even the source energy of this anchor universe. They're like, this is something special. This is ancient future technology unlocking. Like, I don't even for sure know what all this is going to unlock for people because I'm in such the early stages. And like I said, this is the opening of the founders level Remerging attunements. And so I'm being extremely selective about opening this. This is only available to MacroSymposia members, probably for the rest of this year, at least. The first 7 to 10-ish people that receive this attunement are, you're going to know. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel the magnet pull. If not now, it'll keep looping back around. But the founders of this attunement will be caretakers of this frequency. And there's a reason I'm not showing the symbol anywhere, and that hasn't been revealed or anything like that. It's very important. These founders attunements aren't just it's not just the founders attunements because you're receiving the base level attunements, the beginner kind of it's a rough equivalent to Reiki 1, maybe Reiki 1 and 2 a little bit, if you are familiar with that structure, based on what I've compared notes with multiple friends who do Reiki. And so it's kind of like Reiki 1 and 2, sort of, with the understanding that it's inherently a different modality and a different energy and a different structure. But once it's the founders attunements because it's that beginner's stage of these attunements, but also because it's the founding caretakers of the Remerging modality, and it'll be some of the kind of inaugural people who will be bringing that frequency and that energy and this modality to the Earth Collective, because it's a new modality. It's a modality that has been woven and created and come into existence by collective consciousness manifestation and demand that it needed. That the collective needed this, and so the collective created the demand, and I am, honored to be a facilitator of the passing of this into the collective. But those who get these beginning attunements to it will also be caretaking and bringing this to the collective, and ushering in your unique modalities and expressions. The Remerging attunement is the seed, but the plant that emerges from the Remerging modality might be different for every single person who receives the Remerging modality. It'll have elements and aspects of the macrocosmic embodiment techniques that I use, and it'll have links and ties to energy weaving and such like that. But by nature, like I said, it's planting a seed and awakening and activating it within you. But the plant that emerges from the modality will be uniquely yours, and I cannot wait to see how that births into being for everyone. And so to wrap this up, because this is way longer than a 5-minute introduction, but it required this more detailed introduction. So for the Founders Remerging attunements, it is, you're going to receive 3 Remerging attunements that complete the Founders stage of the attunements. Eventually, I will have a kind of master teacher style level for those who want to provide Remerging attunements to others, and to apply it in more advanced ways for practitionership, and want to teach and give attunements and all that kind of stuff. And so, but at this stage, the Founders level Remerging attunements, it allows you to use the modality for yourself, and to use the modality once you've kind of been initiated and integrated into it. There will be a point where you're able to use this Founders Remerging attunement as a healing activation for others, but not an attunement for others. That is in the upper level stage of the attunements. But like I said, in the Founders Remerging attunement level, you get 3 Remerging attunements that wrap up the Founders level. You're also going to receive 5 credits towards wisdom exchange check-ins that you'll have flexible scheduling to use them within like a year and some change, I think is on the details for it, that you have to use them, though typically you would use them within a few months, but to help get specialized and individualized assistance with integrating and processing and working through the Remerging modality integration, and kind of having some one-on-one classes on it. But you're also going to receive a digital Remerging guidebook that will be all about the background of the Remerging symbol, obviously the introduction to the actual symbol, and just insight into the modality as a whole. And it will also, there's a self-attunement stage of this. There's 3 attunements that I give that are in part to just help. They're help to introduce the energy and the frequency into your soul body, and then to help make sure that it is staying activated and integrated and processing and deepening that process to the level that it needs to be at the end of the Founders level. And then, like I said, there's the self-attunement stage, which will be explained in more detail in the guidebook, but it's an inherent facet of energy weaving esque modalities. There's always some facet of self-attunement quality to them, and that deepens the bond and the connection with the caretakership of the symbol. And like I said, that will be discussed in the guidebook. And there will also be stuff in the guidebook for working with the symbol and how to begin working with the symbol and the modality to start unlocking your unique plant and expression of that modality. And then you'll also, of course, get a certificate of caretakership that you have received the founders level of these attunements, which will be, and founders level ones will get a little, yours will get have a little extra spice to it because you'll be a founding caretaker of the Remerging modality. I'm also tentatively going to be opening up, it may not be open immediately, but I'm thinking about opening up a group chat or some type of that type of thing for everyone who's receiving the Remerging modality attunement or the founders level of it, just because it might be nice to compare notes and exchange experiences, or even to practice Remerging like healing sessions on each other, and to just kind of have that community element. But then of course that's an optional facet for those who want that community element, that more digital community. And then obviously there'll be the wisdom exchanges for the one-on-one support with me, to individualize and specialize your attunement integrations and make sure all that's working together. And then highly recommend the Soul Knowledge Inquiry the Soul Knowledge Inquiry or the Macrocosmic Relumination to go with the attunements now or after the fact or whatever. It can be a great way to advance your integration and your practice of the Remerging modality, especially if you intend to incorporate it into your practitionership, and if you're doing that as part of your work. So I'm gonna wrap this up now. Thank you for listening. I'm so honored, so pleased, so excited to be bringing this modality into existence. It's something that I didn't have on my bingo card for part of my work, but it's a facet that I'm very excited to be experiencing and to be weaving into my work. I can't wait to start attuning more people to this modality and seeing how it evolves. I forgot to add that eventually that the guidebook is still being developed. It's about halfway through, more or less, maybe. But part of it won't be fully completed until we get through the founders levels of the attunements. It's also why the price is so good for all the different individual mentorship sessions and all the stuff. Because I'm still building out the guidebook because I'm integrating and attuning you to a modality that is by nature meant to unlock unique skills and facets and pieces for each person. I need to make sure that the guidebook kind of covers all the bases for all the unique experiences that y'all might have with the attunement integration. So you'll see that guidebook tweak and evolve, and throughout the attunement process as more and more people begin receiving the attunement and begin integrating the different stages of the attunements. And then once it is completed, no matter where you live across the globe, you will receive a physical version of the Remerging modality handbook. Because I think for this, I think it deserves like a physical, tangible book that you can reference and look through and add to and cultivate, and so that will be something that everyone will receive once they're completely done. Once the handbook is completely finished, I will put together the digital book into a physical version and send it to everyone. So So excited. This is a really special opportunity and experience for myself and everybody involved, and I cannot wait to see what this unlocks for the broader collective, having so many different individuals who will be able to wield their soul modality and their soul source essence in some really cool and unfathomable ways. So, all right. I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to see y'all in the Remerging attunements. Let me know what questions you have, if you have any about it, and I'll be happy to follow up.